do you do with older students who have reading difficulties? Is there any benefit to focusing on fluency or providing phonics instruction by the time students are in 6th grade on up through high school? What role should comprehension instruction play? That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Hi everyone, I'm Lee Hall from Literacy Teachers, and I'm all about giving you the tools you need to inspire, motivate, and change how your students read and write for academic success. If you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get new notifications as I put out new videos each week. So today's question comes from a high school English teacher, and it reads as follows. At the high school level, when working with struggling readers, should you still focus on fluency and phonics, or should you focus on content comprehension? And this is a really common question that a lot of middle and high school teachers have, because it's pretty common to have a lot of students in our classes that have regular difficulties comprehending academic texts. And you probably feel stuck in terms of how do I help these students, sort of like what's the best thing for them. So let's start with the easiest answer first, and that's going to be around phonics. So in general, the answer to that is no. By middle school, probably by 3rd grade really, but definitely by middle school, you don't need to be spending time teaching phonics, all right? That's not to say that a student is not going to run into a word that they don't know what it means and you have to tell them or show them how to sound it out or something because it's a funky word. That happens. But in general, at that point, students, they got it. They know the rules. They might not be able to articulate them, but you probably can't articulate most of them either. I know I can't off the top of my head, but you know them. So there are kids that, in middle school, in high school that will need phonics instruction. Those kids are going to have some pretty severe learning disabilities, all right? And so you're going to know who those students are. But when I'm talking about struggling readers here, I'm talking about kids who they don't have an identified learning disability, but they are still, for whatever reason, really having difficulty understanding and comprehending the text. For them, they don't need any phonics instruction. They've already got that down. So let's move on to the next part. Should you be focusing on fluency? Most likely not with this particular group of students. A lot of struggling readers are very good word callers, which means that they can pick up a book and they can start reading it and they can get into the groove and they can sound pretty good to the point that you would be surprised that they didn't understand most of what they read. If you think about it, you might be able to do this with a foreign language. So I can do this with German. I had a couple years of German in high school. I had a year or two of it in college. And while I definitely do know some words, and if I was around it, I would start to get back into it. If you could hand me any German book that you want, as difficult as you want right now, I can open it up, start reading it. At first, I might sound a little clunky because I haven't read it in German in a while, but if you give me a few minutes, you come back in 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm going to be sounding pretty good, okay? I won't know what I'm saying for the most part. I will know what some words mean, but I will not have a clue. I will be completely lost, but I'll be able to sound good. So a lot of struggling readers, they can sound good. They have good intonation. They have good speed. Sometimes they might read a little slower when they're sort of stuck or trying to make meaning. So probably when you're seeing them show a lack of fluency is probably when they're slowing down and trying to sort of take the time to figure out what's going on here with these words, with how to pronounce them, with what they mean, and they might actually be trying to think about what's going on, which might be making it look like that their fluency is not as good as it should be. But in most likely their fluency is going to be just fine, right? So then let's get to the next part. Should you be focusing on content comprehension? Yes, absolutely. Comprehension is something that we should all be focusing on from the moment students walk into school at kindergarten all the way up until they graduate. Even in college, we need to be focusing on helping students understand how to comprehend text, okay? And why is that? I mean, it's pretty easy to understand. I mean, some people think that, well, by the time students hit middle school, and certainly by the time they hit high school, they should know how to read. And they should know how to comprehend. I should be able to give them something. They should be able to understand it for the most part. But actually, as students progress through the grades, the texts that you're asking them to read become more difficult, right? The vocabulary words get more difficult. They get not just longer, but they get very content specific. So you're having students that are introduced to these words, these content specific words in science and mathematics and history that they may not have been exposed to, okay? That makes the text hard. They are getting exposed to content topics that they most likely have very limited background knowledge on. They're not experts, okay? When we have limited background knowledge, it influences our ability to be able to comprehend and engage with a topic, all right? And then the texts themselves tend to just become denser, right? The sentences are longer, the language is more complex, the concepts are new and they are difficult, right? Because they're building, right? You're layering concept upon concept as students progress through the grades and progress through, different levels of mathematics or the sciences, for example. All right. So that means that you're going to want to spend some time thinking about, how do I break this down and teach students how to comprehend a text that's in my biology class or a text in my geometry class, because the ways that you do that are not generic. The ways that you comprehend a text in science and how you go about it and the kinds of information and ideas that you want students to pull out of it, that's different than what a history teacher wants or the English teacher wants. And so students need to learn those differences. And we'll be discussing some of those differences in future videos. But for now, I think the big takeaway from this question is, don't worry so much about phonics or fluency. Definitely, if you're going to put your eggs in a basket, put them into the comprehension basket, and helping your students learn strategies and learn techniques that will aid them in understanding the text that you're asking them to read. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe so you can catch all of my videos. And while you're at it, go down to the comment section and talk to me about questions that you have, difficulties that you have in terms of meeting the needs of struggling readers, right? How do you help your students comprehend text? Or what questions do you have? How can we help you help your students so that you can move forward with your journey?